Welcome back. Before we get into episode 19 of the ATA podcast, I just want to set the stage a little bit. About a month ago, I had the chance to meet Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta when he was in Boston for a few nights. He was courteous enough to give me about 15 minutes of his time to talk about everything Ravens, my background, his background, Boston sports, and various other things. He agreed to do an interview-style podcast with me at some point after the NFL Combine, which is what you're about to listen to. We were able to talk about his draft process, other duties he has as a GM, thoughts on the 2024 NFL season, and how it ended, as well as relationships with players like Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Roquan Smith, and front office members like Ozzie Newsome. Anyone who knows me knows how big of a Ravens fan I am, but also how much I appreciate strong work in the professional sports industry. Mr. DeCosta fits both of those categories, which is why I'm so thankful he was able to take some time out of his day to speak with me. You won't want to miss the interview, nor will you want to miss podcasts this weekend with former NFL center Matt Skura and my regularly scheduled podcast with Ben Parody from Beyond the Box Score. Make sure to follow ATA on Spotify and stay tuned for those. Coming up, Eric DeCosta.
You're listening to Around the Association.
Fires, puts it up. Bang! Steph Curry from way downtown. Jackson keeps Stanley in front of him. Touchdown, Lamar. Sugar on the breakaway. He scores. How's it go?
All right, everybody, welcome back to ATA Podcast. This is episode number 19, but this is no ordinary podcast because today we're going to be interviewing Ravens GM Eric DeCosta. So happy to have you on, Mr. DeCosta, and really excited to talk with you today.
Thanks, Webb. I'm happy to be here.
So the last time we talked was in Boston, right before or about a month before the NFL Combine. We're 3 days past it now, so I'm sure you've had some time to process some of the evaluations you've done. But what type of evaluation were you able to do at the Combine? And what's the biggest challenge that comes when you're, judging such a large pool of players?
Yeah, so we had the chance to interview probably close to 300 players at the Combine. We do 45 formal interviews with myself and Coach Harbaugh, position coaches. And then we call it the train station downstairs at the Dome. Every position group, players come through, coaches can grab players informally, spend time with those guys, ask questions, all with the idea that we're trying to ascertain their personality, their drivers, their motivation, their background. What motivates these guys? Are they disciplined? Do they have a growth mindset? Are they tough, physical guys? For us, that's a really important piece of the process. We can watch the tape and we can see how these guys play the game, but it's tougher for us to kind of figure out what drives these guys. What's their passion? Do they love the game? Are they playing the game just to get paid? Have they handled adversity in their past? Questions like that become really, really important as we start to put the whole thing together. So, we spend about a week there. We break it up. The first part of the week is really interviews. The second part of the week is a combination of interviews and workouts. What we love about the workouts is it gives us the chance to see all these guys on the same stage competing against each other. It's a great litmus test for us to compare players, to see which guys can perform on a big stage in front of NFL scouts and coaches and which guys don't do as well.
So in that second stage after the initial week of just interviews and talking to players, how much is effort a factor as opposed to just, what the type of tape they're putting on the field in terms of like 40 time or broad jump and all of those stats?
Well, we want to see how guys compete. A lot of players will come to the Combine and they're not necessarily willing to do all the different testing stuff. We've always appreciated the players that come to Indy willing to do everything. They go through the interview process, they bench press, they vertical jump, they run the 40, they do all the position drills. It's really an important part of the process and helps us kind of fulfill our evaluations on these guys. I think just the idea as a football player of competition every single day, pushing yourself to be the very best, competing against your teammates, competing against other people, trying to set records and do the very best. Those are the kind of things I think that when we look at players and we're trying to split hairs, those things tend to resonate with us.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I feel like a lot was made of Lamar Jackson not running the 40-yard dash when he was drafted. Do you think that that's possibly, and this goes for any player who skips out on a certain drill, but do you think that's partially a reason why he fell down the draft board?
I don't think so. I think in Lamar's case, everybody knew that he was fast. There was really no upside in him running a 40-yard dash. You could watch the tape. And now he actually, with all the technology that we have and the different modeling that we do, we can actually just watch a guy's tape and do a pretty good job of estimating what his 40 time is going to be. So, I really don't subscribe to that theory that, Lamar didn't run and that's why he fell. I think it's just Lamar was kind of a non-traditional quarterback candidate at the time.
Right.
And some people held that against him. Fortunately, we did not. But I think it took a creative coaching staff, a creative organization to see what he does best and to imagine what that might look like in your team.
Do you think a lot of front offices overstate the importance of the 40 and all the other drills or whatever you want to call them? Just because, I take Kyle Hamilton, for example. When you guys drafted him at 14th overall, every ESPN, CBS, Yahoo was giving it an A+ grade for the draft. And I think he fell because, a lot of his 40 time was 4.59, which is a lot slower than what people expected. Obviously, you would know better about other factors that might have influenced that. But do you think that in general there's some front offices that overstate the importance of the combine?
I think if you're picking in the early part of the draft and you're trying to separate all these really good players, you tend to split hairs. And I think, as a top 15 pick, some clubs obviously had some concerns about his 40. I think we tend to spend more time looking at our own personal evaluations of the player, what our coaches and scouts think, interviews and things like that, than actually the testing. And I think over the years we've seen less of a reliance on the testing stuff. I think clubs are doing a better job of just understanding why players end up being good. Certainly want to have a fast team. I'm not going to lie and say that 40s aren't important. How fast a guy is on tape isn't important, because it is. But I think in the end, there are a lot of other things that you can look at to get a sense for players' game speed, spatial awareness, all these other things that we think are more important than what a guy does on a track running a 40-yard dash.
Gotcha. How much tape do you personally watch prior to the draft or throughout the college seasons?
Well, when I was younger and I was the scouting director or the assistant GM or the director of player personnel, a lot more than I watch now. My requirements day to day, typically I'll meet with a lot of people during the day. I have an intention of watching a lot of tape, but I come into the office and get pulled in different directions. That being said, I carve out a portion of my day every day to watch some tape. And usually in the mornings early, at night after people go home. On the weekends, I typically come in early in the morning before my kids are awake and watch as much as I can, because, for me, it's really, really important as we're getting ready to, get to the draft, that I've seen as many players as possible and have the ability to compare players to see what their role might be, how they fit in, and to be able to compare those guys to each other. So it's really challenging if you've done some players at one position but not players at another position, because you can't compare the players.
Right.
So for me, it's always about, watching as many guys as I can. I call it bulk scouting. So as we get closer to the process, trying to go through the list, at least to see the top 150 to 200 players, so that as we're getting ready to make selections, I can compare the guys and I know exactly how they're going to fit with our team.
So that's about the draft, but you guys are historically great at identifying undrafted players. Keaton Mitchell being the most recent example that I can think of is just a breakout guy that wasn't drafted, and all of a sudden in his first season was leading the league in yards per carry at one point. So what would you say makes you so good at identifying those guys that don't get drafted in the first 7 rounds?
Well, I think it's the process that our scouts and I undergo every year. We discuss every player, so we're not just focusing on the top guys that we think are draftable. We're going down the entire draft board, looking at all the players that we scouted in the fall, all the players that go to all-star games. And, we're bringing guys back alive. So even if a scout doesn't like a guy in the fall, if the guy goes to an all-star game and tests well, performs well at the combine, we're going to revisit that prospect. And I think
Yeah.
we cover all those players in the meetings. We're discussing all those guys. It takes a long time. It's a grueling process. We spend probably almost 2 weeks going through all the different players. We typically will spend at least 15 to 20 minutes on every prospect that we look at. And so, in a lot of cases, very few guys will fall through the cracks, and we have a good understanding of every single prospect, what they're going to do. And then I think our scouts do a great job at the end of really prioritizing the undrafted guys that we want to target. Mark Acevedo, Andrew Raphael, Joey Cleary, guys like that do an amazing job in the meetings. They're organized. Every scout has a voice. We really kind of target the guys that we think have the best chance to make our team. And I think we do a good job of getting those players after the draft.
Were those guys on your staff before you became GM, or were those your personal hires?
They were. So we've been blessed. We've had such continuity over the years. This is truly like a destination spot for scouts. And, I think we're very much a draft-driven team. And so because of that, people want to work here. We typically hire younger guys, put them through our process, our program, develop them, and then give them a chance to become area scouts. And, guys understand the culture, the grading scale, the system, the process, how we do things. It's different from what other teams do in some cases. It works for us. We're proud of it. It's just an important part of how we build our team.
Right. Yeah, I guess touching on some of that past history, you took over for Ozzie Newsome in 2018, and he was the general manager for 16 years. Had a role in the front office since, 1996, I believe. And you've obviously been around the organization for several decades. So how do you, remind me, you were appointed as the successor almost a decade prior to Ozzie's retirement, no?
Right, so I started working for the Ravens in 1996.
Yeah.
In 1997, I became an area scout. In 2003, I became the college scouting director, ran the draft meetings. And then in 2007, I accepted Steve's offer to eventually be the GM. Not knowing what that time frame was going to be. It turned out being 12 years, which was a long time. Gave me the chance to kind of learn and develop myself even more and to kind of work on some of my own weaknesses. Became the GM in January of 2019, and I'm now just concluding my 6th year as the GM of the Ravens.
Right. I guess what my question was going to be is how much do you look up to Ozzie in a team building perspective, just from what you learned in those 12 years, and also I guess since 1996 as well. But do you still talk to him, and do you still take some of his advice and use some of his principles, whether it's drafting, free agency, trades?
Yeah, so I'm blessed that Ozzie still works here, and now he works for me. So, for, I guess, 23 years or so, I worked for him, and the last 6 years, he's worked for me. Ozzie's the GOAT. I mean, he's, in my mind, probably the best general manager in NFL history. And so having him here now is a blessing. We're very close friends, almost like family. In some ways we can finish each other's sentences. And I think some of his greatest strengths are probably my weaknesses, and some of my greatest strengths are his weaknesses. So together, we form a really good pair. A lot of my own core beliefs about football derive from Ozzie and conversations that we've had, and a lot of the systems that we have in place now, we built back out in like 1999, 2000, 2001. We're still doing a lot of the same stuff. Not all the same stuff, but we still do a lot of the same stuff because it works. It's proven over time, and we believe in it.
Yeah, I was just this is a little off track, but I was looking at the report cards yesterday for all the NFL teams, whether it's like the training room or the locker room, treatment of families, the ownership. I'm assuming you've seen those.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, I just think of the Ravens. One of the reasons why I like him so much is because, obviously besides the fact that I was just a fan to begin with, but you guys just have such a stable operation. And I look at some of the teams that have A-pluses in ownership, one of them being the Vikings in particular, on their purple team. I've always liked them not because of just their talent, but also just because I think no matter you bring in a guy like Sam Darnold, for instance, and you don't go 14-3 by accident. So I just think the teams like Minnesota, I'm just using as an example, but you guys as well, no matter the personnel on the field, the coaching staff, I think you guys do such a good job that it's going to be hard to fail for years to come, like some of these other sort of unstable front offices that don't have that continuity like you and Ozzy do and the rest of the staff. So that's something I definitely admire about the organization. Just last draft related piece of questioning is that I think as a fan, the most coverage we see of a GM and the rest of the front office is the draft night when you guys are all at the table making your calls and you have the big board. Where would you say that night ranks out of the 365 days in the year in terms of how fun it is and how stressful it is? How would you put that up there with the rest of the responsibilities as a GM?
Well, I've always loved the draft. I mean, I've loved the draft since I was 10 years old, and I would watch, the draft with my father, and we would have all of our notes and our lists and rankings and things. And so for me, it's really, the highlight of my career and what we do each season. And, for a lot of reasons. I mean, it starts with the preparation that goes into it, working with your scouts, developing a game plan, having a keen understanding of all the talent in each draft class. But then it goes into strategy for that draft class, the essence of where the strengths and weaknesses might be in that pool of players. And the actual event, for me, it's at a game day, and it's an opportunity for us to get better as a team. And it's really one of the best ways for me to get my hands dirty and to really impact the roster and what we do. And then the emotional aspect, calling these guys and telling them that we're going to draft them, that they're going to be Baltimore Ravens, is like, in some ways, in a weird sort of way, almost like, giving birth or starting a family. And these guys get emotional. It's an important part of their lives. They're moving to another city to play for a new team. Their lives are changing. Their families' lives are changing. And then I think about our fan base, and we're bringing in new players and new opportunities for our fans to fall in love with these guys as players. And we are, building our brand, and we're giving people hope, and we're doing so many things for the community. There's a beauty in that for me, and not one that I take lightly.
Yeah, as a fan, the best part of draft night is watching the player reactions when they get the call. Because there's honestly nothing better than seeing them just shed a tear, because it shows the passion that they have for the game, and I guess the sort of the unwavering love that they're going to have for the Ravens or whatever team they're drafted to for their career. Do you have a favorite draft call memory since you've been GM?
My first, call was Hollywood Brown, my first pick. And that was a special one for me, just because I had waited so long and my whole life, really, to make that call as the GM. And, after I made the call, the scouts all clapped. And that was a cool experience personally for me. I'll always be, attached to Hollywood. He's always going to be a special guy for me, even though, we ended up trading him. But he'll always have a special spot in my heart. And because of that, it was my first pick, and just that phone call and the emotion that he felt and also that I felt. Yeah. And that the trust that the organization put in me to be in that position was special and very humbling.
What's that like, just shifting towards sort of your responsibility as a GM more? What's it like, the emotional side of trading and cutting players, especially around the time of training camp, but guys like Hollywood too, whether it's like negotiating contracts or managing expectations from ownership, or even the videos last year where you're telling Zay he made the Pro Bowl? What's it like, just the emotional side of being a GM?
Well, there's definitely ups and downs. It's like being a father in some ways. I mean, you've got this team that becomes your family, and you're going to have your proud moments, and you're going to have your moments where you're disappointed or upset or angry, and you have to deal with challenges every single day. Things pop up. But in the end, it's a family, and you love these guys, good or bad. We're going to support our players. We're going to do whatever we can to help them be their very best, to grow and to prosper and to nurture them. Understand that they're going to make mistakes, and we're going to make mistakes, but we're a family. We're going to stick together, through all the different challenges. And so there's mixed. I mean, there's some days when I'm having a great day and I can tell Zay Flowers that he's made the Pro Bowl. There are going to be other days when I'm disappointed because a player missed the team playing, or he was late to a meeting, or we got an injury on the field and we can't replace that player because he's too good. Those are tough situations that you have to navigate. And from that standpoint, it's very much like being a part of a family. You know, there's going to be some days when you're mad at your parents, or your parents are mad at you, or you're having a bad day, you didn't get your homework done, you lost a game in sports, your dad lost his job, you know, you have a sibling that's ill or injured or sick or a health crisis, or you have a parent that's not well, or, you know, there's a million different things that you have to navigate through your lives, and that's very much like running a football team in many ways.
Yeah, I guess they always say football is pretty much like a family. I'm assuming you'd agree with that.
I would.
Yeah. Moving over to, I guess, sort of current team-related questions. Obviously last year was a roller coaster from starting off 0-2 with losses to the Chiefs and in Vegas in weeks 1 and 2. Even losing to the Steelers and then the Eagles as well when we were 8-5. It was just a roller coaster in terms of, I guess, expectations. Definitely in the preseason, I expected us to be a Super Bowl favorite, and then there were times where, honestly, even as a huge fan, I was questioning that throughout the year. But by the end of the season, even despite the loss in the divisional round, I feel that we were, you know, you guys built a Super Bowl caliber team. So I'm wondering what about last year's team, in your mind, differentiates itself from other Ravens squads that you've built in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the cool things about last year's team, you touched on it, is just the resilience that we showed. The ability to come back from 0-2. Hard to do. Not a lot of teams can do it effectively. We never lost hope, never wavered, practiced hard every single day. You know, we were relatively healthy, which was awesome. And then some guys just put forth some amazing seasons. Lamar, Derrick Henry, guys like that. Our defense started slow. We made some changes personnel-wise, scheme-wise. We got that turned around to the end of the season when those guys were playing great football. So I think this club was able to overcome some tough circumstances in different ways. Showed a lot of heart, a lot of grit, growth mindset. And really, you know, we won the division for the second year in a row, put ourselves in position with a playoff win, played some great football down the stretch in a very, very challenging schedule.
Yeah.
And honestly, think we were on the cusp of being there. We didn't get it accomplished, but I think the players did a great job. Coaches did an amazing job, and we're gonna keep plowing ahead.
Absolutely, yeah. You guys are right there. You mentioned Derrick Henry. The running back market took a hit in these last couple seasons, and really this year it's sort of, I guess, making a little bit of a comeback. Saquon Barkley just got paid $40+ million contract over the next 2 years. He's now the first running back in history to make $20 million in a year. So obviously Saquon got a lot of press this year, winning the Super Bowl and breaking the single season regular and post record for rushing yards. But Henry almost, you know, he put up very similar numbers. So what did you see out of him, just from a purely on-field perspective, but also from the sense of, you know, running backs were sort of, it looked like they were going out of style on the market and potentially on the field. So what was it like to see him sort of rebuild the brand of the running back in a place like Baltimore where running backs have prospered in the past?
Yeah, I mean, Derek, we played against him many times. He's killed us in the past.
Yeah.
Saw him in college, evaluated him in college. You know, we just felt like he had the skill set to really prosper in Baltimore on our team. Physical, tough, a leader. I'd been around Derek at the Pro Bowl in 2019, and I had a chance to see him and evaluate him and just get a sense for his personality and work ethic and, you know, his mentality. Felt like he'd be a great fit. His agent, Todd France, is a good friend of mine, and we were blessed to be able to get a deal done. So he was everything that we expected and more. Just a guy that you can hang your hat on every single day. Takes amazing care of his body, a true professional. And he brought so much to the table for us this year and helped put us over the top.
Yeah. He's been in rumors to go to the Ravens for years before this one. I don't know if you can really get into it, but is there a moment in the seasons prior where you initially considered bringing Henry onto the team?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we looked at every opportunity. I mean, anytime there's a player that we think would really do well with us, we're going to look at that. And, you know, one of the fun aspects of my job is the hunt always goes on. And so, you know, during the course of a season or course of an off season, you look at as many players as you can. You try and get as creative as possible. All with the mindset of how do we build the best football team we can. And so, every player, anytime there's a player, it could be anybody that we think is going to be a good player, it could be a good player for us, guys that we've played against in the past. We're going to try and get creative and find a way to bring them to Baltimore if we can.
Right. Henry had a crazy good season. Lamar had perhaps the most impressive season of anyone of any team this year. 119.6 passer rating was fourth all time for a single season passer rating. 41 touchdowns, 4 picks. The numbers were just off the charts, but you ask any Ravens fan, and they'll tell you that it's the eye test that passes even more. So, I mean, Lamar had an incredible year, and you saw that firsthand. Did you have a favorite Lamar memory from this season?
Oh, man. I mean, Lamar never ceases to amaze all of us with what he does on the field. But I think this year we saw him really become a consummate leader on the field in practice, working with his teammates, being demanding at times, picking guys up when they're struggling. That has a big impact on your team. That has a big impact on the offense. And, he takes great care of his body. He came in this year in phenomenal shape. And it showed on the field. And, he's a tremendous talent, but he's also a tremendous person. The way that he handles his business day in, day out is great. And he's just had a phenomenal year. We're very proud of that. I think the offense overall had a great year, driven by Lamar, but also a lot of other guys are a big part of that. So it was a lot of fun to watch. I hate to see it end early, but I'm confident we can get back there again next year.
Can you speak to Lamar as a leader from going from Joe Flacco's backup in 2018 to where he is now?
Yeah, I mean, he's engaged. He's got a louder voice now. But he leads by example, really. I mean, the things that he does on the field in crunch time when the game's on the line. I mean, just look at us at the end of the half, at the end of the game when we're behind. He's just driving guys down the field, He's a tremendous competitor. The other players feed off of that. They see it. They feel it. And that's a motivating factor. And, I think the other thing is like the work that he does on his own back home with his teammates, guys down in Florida. I mean, that's a big deal. And I think it's what makes Lamar unique is his passion that he exudes when he plays, his love of the game. Other guys feel it, other guys see it, and it lifts other players up and makes us a better football team.
Yeah, as a fan since, I would say, around the first Super Bowl, so 2012, 2013, I mean, I would argue that I would love the Ravens no matter what, but the offense was getting a little stale just in terms of a watchability perspective in the late 2010s. So having Lamar enter the organization has just been so refreshing. Obviously, a great pick by you guys, but Lamar is just, I mean, probably shouldn't leak this to the public. All my computer passwords are Lamar Jackson 8. It's just he's just the best. He's just the best. So love Lamar more than any athlete ever. He's the best. After the 2023 season, things got stale with Lamar though, when he was up for a contract extension, and he'd been injured at the end of the last 2 years and missed the playoffs 1 year, and then the Ravens didn't make the playoffs in the second season. What was that like? Just that environment with the negotiations with Lamar. Obviously, his mom. Sorry, can I clarify? His mom was his agent, or was he his own representation?
Lamar represented himself, and so all of our conversations were between Lamar and I. It was a lengthy process, time-consuming, times some anxiety, but I think the thing that we shared was a respect for each other and a friendship and an understanding. And I understood where he was coming from, and I think he understood where I was coming from. And again, like it was trial by fire in some ways. It took a lot of patience on my part and also on his part. But we were able to get it done. I'm very proud of that. I'm happy for our Ravens community that we could get the deal done. And I'm confident that we're in good shape.
What pushed you over the finish line in terms of getting the deal done with Lamar?
I think it just came down to the process of, understanding where everybody was coming from. I think it's a long deal when you're representing yourself it's challenging as a GM to negotiate a deal with a player, to understand, this is going to take a year to 2 years to get this kind of a deal done, and sometimes. Mm-hmm. And a lot of respect for Lamar. I think he had a lot of respect for me and for the process. And we finally got to the point where we understood, like, this is where we are. We got to get this deal done. It's the best thing for you. It's the best thing for us as a club. We're going to work together. We're going to build the best team we can. We're going to move forward and hopefully win some championships.
Yeah. Lamar and everyone else in the Ravens are sort of larger-than-life figures just because we watch them on TV every week, and they're doing things that a lot of us can't even fathom doing on the football field. You obviously have a much closer relationship with them, definitely professionally, but are you close with a lot of these guys personally, and are you, do you know their families? Do you get dinners with them? Do you have sit-down conversations? What's your relationship with beyond the professional side of things with a lot of these players?
Well, in many cases, they're like family. I mean, we're together all the time. I mean, especially during the season, we're together every single day. We travel together. We're on the field together every single day. And I'm here for these guys, and I think they know that. Now, there are going to be some times when I'm going to tell you something that I'm disappointed about, or something that you're not doing very well. But I'm also going to pick you up and try to tell you that when you're doing something great, So I think that's important. In my role is to be as honest and transparent as I can be with our players. I'm not going to hang out and do things socially, but they know I've got their back. They know I've got the organization's best interests as well. And, we're going to work together. And even though I'm not on the field playing, they know that I'm a competitive person. They know that I want to build the best team that I can, that I'm going to help them be their very best, that I'm going to do the fairest deals that I can for them and for the Ravens organization, and that they can come to me anytime. And they may not always like what I have to say, but they're going to respect my honesty and my transparency, and we're going to move forward as a club.
Right. Great to hear. Sort of like a parent, as you touched upon with the whole family aspect of it.
Yes.
Lamar, and just touching back on Lamar from earlier, he's already an all-time great, but anyone from Baltimore would say that the Ravens hang their hat on defense. So obviously the league, with just the more points are being scored nowadays, it's moving offensively, but how do you try to maintain the standard of a great Ravens defense in this era where offense is becoming more important on the field, but also, putting fans in seats? How do you maintain the defensive standard?
Yeah, we want to be a balanced team. And so the challenge is to spend wisely on both sides of the ball, to allocate as much money as you can to ensure that you've got a really good offense and a really good defense and a good special teams. And so that is a challenge. We never want to be a team that's not strong on defense. We've always been a good defensive team. We're a blue-collar town. Our mentality and identity is really based on defense in many ways. And so I feel that. I think we feel that as an organization. So we're going to have a team that has some alpha personalities on defense, to play physical brand of football, that can stop the run, stop the pass, get after the quarterback, and force turnovers. And, we're never going to let that kind of lapse. We're going to spend money on it every single year because we want to be a team that can get off the field. We want to be a team that can get the ball back on a 3-and-out, give a chance to our offense to go down the field and score. So that's an important part of who we are. That's an important part of our culture. We feel it, our players feel it, our coaches feel it. And I think a lot of our defensive players understand the lineage and the history that come with playing defense on the Baltimore Ravens.
You mentioned splitting the money evenly on both sides. The Chiefs won back-to-back Super Bowls, and then they obviously made it to the Super Bowl again this year by stacking up on defense. And then, once you've got Patrick Mahomes, you assume he can sort of do anything no matter what the offensive pieces are. Obviously, signing Derrick Henry is a little bit different from that, but do you agree with the strategy that because Lamar has the ability to almost carry an offense by himself, that a lot of the focus should go towards defense when you've got such a talent like him that can lift up the other offensive players?
Well, I think our mindset is really to be good on both sides of the ball and try to keep all the different position groups fortified and as strong as possible. We never want to have a team that doesn't have a good offensive line or good wide receivers or good tight ends around Lamar. A player just can't simply do it on his own. If you look at the Chiefs, they've spent money on defense, but they've also spent a lot of money on their offensive line, tight end, They have a center that's highly compensated, offensive guards that are highly compensated. So, again, I think it comes down to across the board being as balanced as you can. You never want to have a weak position group because that's going to end up costing you games. And so the challenge really is how can we build the very best defense and the very best offense in a salary cap age that we're in our league. That is a challenge. It's something that we spend a lot of time on. It can be done, but it's also quite challenging. It ensures that you have to draft well every single season to keep replacing players with good young talent.
Right.
And then trying to keep as much of your talent as you can, homegrown talent, so to speak.
Your defense hit somewhat of a rock bottom in 2021 just with all the injuries. I know that was a historic season in terms of just injury rate among the team, but obviously turned a corner midway through 2022 and has been top of the league ever since. I think I have somewhat of an idea, but is there any defensive acquisition that you've made around that time that you can point to as the difference maker in that transition to being now consistently one of the best defenses in the league?
Well, I think that what we see is, some of the younger players emerging. Nnamdi Madubuike emerged. Kyle Hamilton, another guy, a young draft pick, came in 2022. Quickly became one of the best safeties in the league. Having Marlon Humphrey, he's overcome some injuries, had a phenomenal season this year for us at corner. And then I think Roquan, the trade we made for Roquan Smith, getting him alpha guy, personality, a guy that you can win with, a guy that puts the defense on his back as a leader. I think all those guys work together. We've added other players around now. We've seen some guys like Kyle Van Noy really flourish here and play extremely well. And there are other guys as well, unsung heroes, guys that have come in and played great football for us in different ways. And so I think on defense, you're trying to find guys that are passionate about the game, that have the ability to make plays, that play with a physical brand of football that we're used to, and that are smart, tough, durable guys. We're fortunate that we've added a lot of those guys. We've had great coaches between Mike McDonald and Zach Orr and other guys as well. And so, listen, we're going to continue to have a strong defense every single year. We're going to continue to fortify and add and build the best we can because it's important to Baltimore. It's important to our team. We do not want to be a one-sided team. And I don't think that's a sustainable way of being a good team for very long. And so that's always going to be our mission.
When someone like Mike McDonald, you mentioned, had so much success for the Ravens in 2023, obviously he's getting a lot of interviews and he's ended up in Seattle now. Is there, because, like you said, it's a family and you want the best for, your guys in the organization. Are you trying to convince him to stay in that situation, or are you encouraging him to look at the best head coaching opportunity? In this case, it was for the Seahawks.
Yeah, it's hard because, if you're in this business and you're a scout, you aspire to be a GM someday. If you're a coach, you probably aspire to be a coordinator or a head coach someday. And very few of those jobs are available. You have 32 teams, and so you've got 64 head coaching jobs and GM jobs combined. Very, very rare, tough to come by. I would never, ever want to prevent somebody from chasing their dreams. And so the reality of it is, someone like Mike McDonald has a chance to go get a head job. It's great for the Ravens. It's not great from the standpoint of being the best we can be, but it's great for the Ravens in terms of developing coaches, promoting guys. It reflects great on John and Steve Bisciotti. And there's really no way that we would ever hold back or prevent somebody from going after that.
You touched on Roquan. He's only 27, which always surprises me whenever I see it, because he just commands so much respect in the huddle and in the locker room and on the field. Also just empowering guys like PQ, who's obviously no longer on the team, but just made him so much better as soon as Roquan came to town. What is it, the $1 million question is that I had was, does he remind you at all of Ray Lewis? But just overall, what is it like to see Roquan, a guy that is still somewhat new to the team compared to other players, commands so much respect at still a relatively young age?
Yeah, there's only one Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
I was blessed to be around him for a long time. I don't even know how many years that was, but 12 or 13 years, and just the way that Ray played and led was really second to none. I think Roquan has his own style. He's an excellent football player. His passion on the field, the way that he practices every day, his competitiveness, his desire, his ability to push players, is amazing. And he's got a great leadership style. It resonates with our guys. He's a force multiplier, and he's able to make guys better, play their very best. He pushes. He doesn't expect anything that he's not providing himself. He's an upfront guy. He's a first-in-line type of player, and he does everything the right way. So it's been great to have him on the team. We felt like we could use somebody with his mindset and leadership ability. He's a phenomenal football player, and he makes us a better team. And we were happy to do an extension. He's another guy that represented himself. He and I did his deal together. He was very prepared, like he is with everything. And it's been great to have him on the team.
Lamar's a 2-time MVP, Roquan, 3-time Pro Bowler, both very established guys, and obviously the fans know them very well. But if I were to ask you 3 unsung heroes from this year's Ravens team, who would you say?
I would say Justice Hill. I would say Darius Washington.
Yeah.
And I would say Daniel Falele.
Darius definitely on my short list as well. And then actually, interesting you say Justice Hill. If you go back to the combine, Justice had the highest vertical jump and broad jump in his class. Was that something that were you able to see, when you drafted him? Did you expect him to portray that level of athleticism on the field? And do you think that's kind of finally coming into play here now this year, or last year, I suppose?
Yeah, I have a lot of admiration for Justice. I'm proud of him. He was a highly competitive runner in college. He did a lot of things well. Fast, explosive, ran hard, good hands, good pass protector, and good on special teams. And he's been able to do that with us. He's a great, teammate. He's a loyal player. He contributes in a lot of different ways. He's a selfless guy. Doesn't matter to him if he gets 2 carries or 22 carries. He's not going to complain. He does a lot of things well. He's a winner. He's got a great mentality. He leads in his own way. And I just feel like he's a guy that has really maximized his career and put himself in a great position.
Yeah, I'd agree. I just have a couple more questions for you about what being a GM is like, because we obviously see, like I said, draft day, and we see the social media posts reporting trades and contract extensions, but there's obviously a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff in your day that we don't see. So what does the average day during the season look like for you?
So I get up early, I get in, I try to watch some tape if I can. I typically have meetings scattered throughout the day. Mostly in the mornings, I'll meet with trainers and the doctors and various people, some scouting directors. My assistant Jen and I have a lot of conversations together about my day-to-day, what I have to do to get through the day. Mid-morning, I start thinking about practice. I typically get a workout in if I can. Get out to practice in the afternoon. Come back in, we'll meet with the doctors and trainers again, watch the practice tape, try to get back to some other tape watching if I can, maybe look at some college stuff. It's kind of a typical day. I'm usually in the office by about 7:30, and
Gotcha.
I usually get home around 8:30 at night.
Gotcha. And you've always been that way, or is that the wake-up time?
Yeah, my schedule's always been typically get into the office as early as I can.
Yeah.
Take my kids to school, potentially, usually get in at 7:30. And then typically try to get home for dinner around 8:30 at night. Some days a little bit earlier, but, usually not much later than that. And then just kind of start over the day next day. And, I'm a routine person, so my schedule, I like to keep it as consistent as possible throughout the season. The season's a little different. It's more reactive to the different things that might pop up with your players and different things, situations and things, injuries. We get into the off season, it's all about building and all about strategy and all about being aggressive and watching as many guys as possible and getting ready for the draft and getting ready for free agency and all these things, signing players, meeting with agents, going to the combine. It's hectic, but I love it. I love that challenge and the process of it. And then in May, we have a chance to kind of unwind a little bit and enjoy life a little bit more. And it gives me a chance to spend more time with my family and my wife and my kids. The summertime, we spend some time at the beach and just kind of chill and, give me a chance to unwind and unpack some things and spend some time on learning and read some books and, watch some TV and just kind of watch my kids play sports and spend time with my daughter and all these things. And then get started up again in August.
Is it difficult working around your job and trying to spend time with family? And I guess a follow-up would be, what has your family meant to you over your nearly 30 years of being part of the Ravens?
Yeah, I think it is a major challenge. When you're working in this business, there's only one way to do it, and you got to go all out all the time. And so there are times that I'm at home when I feel like I should be at work, and there are times when I'm at work when I feel like I should be at home, for sure. I'm blessed to have a wife, Lacey, who has been a tremendous support to me, my partner, and three beautiful kids who, all 4 years apart, different stages of their lives, but provide me with great clarity and perspective on the most important things. And very proud of them, how they've handled this over the last 21 years, and just it's a challenge for them at times, and they have to deal with situations, and they have to deal with their dad not being home all the time, or their dad being criticized in the media, or going out to dinner and people walking up to the table to talk about the team, or not being able to take my daughter to college for her first day because I'm down in Carolina with the team as we practice against the Panthers. And so there are definitely some sacrifices that you have to make, some regrets along the way. You're not going to get involved in professional sports and have a typical, standard, traditional relationship with your family. I'm blessed that, my wife is really the general manager of our family. She does a phenomenal job. She's very understanding. She's a great mom. She's an even better wife. And I think that's important.
That's all great to hear. All great to hear. Just one or two more questions. One of them being, you played football at Colby, and then obviously have been part of the Ravens since 1996. So you've had football in your life for the better half of your life now. Did you know before you started playing football, or I guess before you went to Colby, that you wanted to be a GM, or is that something that you realized closer to when you were appointed as the successor to Ozzie?
Yeah, so football has always been like one of the drivers in my life, one of the things that probably gives me the most pleasure, from the time I was 6 or 7 years old. I remember playing football in the field. We had a field across the street, and I was one of the youngest kids. And we had a great neighborhood. We had like 12 or 14 boys of different ages, but I was one of the younger kids. And we would just play football, and, I would get the hell beat out of me, but, I would refuse to quit. And I always loved the game, studied the game. I grew up, it's 1978, the Cowboys played the Broncos in the Super Bowl, and half the bus stop was pulling for the Broncos, the other half Cowboys, and I took that side and became a Cowboys fan, and just had a lot of admiration for that team. And really did aspire to one day being a GM, and I kind of figured I probably wasn't going to play in the NFL, but my goal was to work for a team, to build a team, to be involved in the draft process, to build a roster, and to build a Super Bowl, level winning team.
So I'm assuming when you were younger and you got into football, you just sort of had a gut feeling it was what you wanted to do.
Yeah, it's a hard profession to get into, so you have to persevere. You need some luck along the way. I had some great mentors. My high school coach, Bobby Lane, my college coach, Don Miller, Tom Austin, and then Don Miller. Those guys were huge mentors for me. They helped foster my understanding of the game, my passion for the game. And I think that was an important step for me. And then I had the chance to do an internship in 1995 with at the time Washington Redskins. Charlie Casserly was the GM, and so he's a Massachusetts guy from Springfield. So I worked with him for a little bit, and I started to really imagine that this was a possibility for me, and it came to fruition, and I'm blessed, and I'm still kind of waking up every day and can't believe that I'm involved in the NFL.
Yeah. You're from Taunton, Mass, which is about an hour south of my hometown, Concord, and about an hour south of Boston as well. You're still the only person I've met that is a Celtics, Bruins, Red Sox, and Ravens fan. So, all honesty, Celtics probably not going to get that one seed in the Eastern Conference this year. But do you still like our chances against the rest of the field?
I do. I think when the lights come on and it's time to shine, I think those guys are going to pick up their game, elevate, and I think they'll be back. I mean, I look at their team. Their roster is extremely strong. They've got a great coach. They've got a great, GM, president, and Brad Stevens. And, I look at their roster, and I don't see many holes. And it's really hard to repeat. I understand that teams are gunning for them, but I feel like when it's time to shine, those guys are going to play their best basketball.
Are you going to make it out to Fenway all this summer?
I'm gonna hope. I hope so. I'll be up there. I'll be on Cape Cod for a little bit. Try to get to a game or two every year. I know I'm a big music fan. I know the Lumineers are playing up there this year in July. I'm gonna try to make it to that potentially as well at Fenway. But it's a special place. It's a magical place. Obviously, the Red Sox are near and dear to me. But I'll be honest with you, I'm also an Orioles fan, and I know that's hard to be a fan of both teams in the same division, but I've got a tremendous respect for Mike Elias, the GM, and Sig Maydal, the assistant GM, and the roster that they've built and what they've done for the Baltimore community. And this is my home. And so, the Orioles are a big part of my life, too, and we go to a lot of these Orioles games down here, and they've got a great squad. And I really, really enjoy watching those guys win baseball games.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, sort of Red Sox and Orioles, although I get a lot of scrutiny for it. But rooting for them either way.
I understand.
Yeah, exactly. Mr. DeCosta, thank you so much for talking today. Learned so much, and hopefully the perspective that you've given spreads to all the listeners to this podcast and to everyone who eventually listens to this. But I'll be able to, spread the knowledge that you've given, and I hope you're able to give it to many more people because it's very insightful, and I appreciate it.
Hey, well, good luck, Webb, with your career and everything moving forward in college and all these different things you're involved with. Good work and all the stuff. I read some of your stuff. You're a good writer, and I think you've